This is exciting, isn't it?
Here we go, guys. In 5, 4, 3. Here we go.
It's time for Joan Esposito. Live, local, and progressive.
Thank you for the good programming, and I appreciate the content and really enjoyed every moment.
It's a privilege to have you on your station and listen. It's good stuff. It's very educational.
It's time for Joan Esposito on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk.
Thank you for being here. It is Friday, February 21st, and I have to start with a little bit of bad news. You know how I told you we really didn't have to worry too much? Because in 8 years, asteroid 2024 YR4 was going to obliterate us? Oh, no. We got up to a 3% chance. Now they have recalculated the orbit, and the asteroid has like a 0.01% chance of making contact with Earth. It's described as about the size of a football field, but apparently it's going to miss us. So no counting on an asteroid to hit the reset button for us, which means, of course, we have to work twice as hard now because we don't have somebody coming to save us in 8 years from ourselves. We have to save ourselves. And that means getting out or getting on your phone, whatever you can do, whenever you can do it. The resistance is here. And remember, let's see, what have we got on our agenda? For those of you in McHenry County, I'm going to be speaking at a lunchtime thing for the McHenry County Democratic Women. That's going to be at Boulder Ridge Country Club, Lake in the Hills, tomorrow. Monday, if you live in the district of Raja Krishnamurthy, he is going to be doing a town hall on Monday the 24th. If you live in the vicinity of Joliet and find yourself hungry for breakfast from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m., I'm going to be joining the Friends of Labor at the IBEW 176 building in Joliet. It's on the frontage road. If you want, you have to register, but you can come if you're a current union member, a former or retired union member, or if you are a listener of our radio station, WCPT. You can register for this 8 a.m. Friends of Labor Southland breakfast Monday, 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. I'm going to be interviewing some people, recording some interviews that will play later during my regular time slot. So there's that. Also, Daniel Biss is having a gathering of folks Tuesday, the 25th. Tuesday, the 25th. There is that going on. If you live in Evanston, it's going to be kind of, I guess, a state of Evanston kind of a thing. So if you want to do, it's from 5 to 7 on Tuesday, the 25th, at the Perspective Gallery in Evanston. And it's going to be a conversation, Daniel says, to connect, ask questions, and discuss the future of Evanston. And let us not forget Friday the 28th. Friday the 28th is our Economic Blackout Day. Chicago Women Take Action. I've gotten a lot of my regular activist emails have mentioned what's going on. But the email that I got from Chicago Women Take Action, I think it lays it out the most clearly. By the way, that's a great group. If you want to even just sign up for their emails, write to info@chicagowomentake.org. And here's what they're saying. When midnight Friday till midnight the end of Friday, 12 a.m. to 12 a.m., a full 24 hours of the 28th. What not to do? Do not make any purchases. Do not shop online or in store. No Amazon, no Walmart, no Best Buy, no Lowe's, no Target, no grocery store, nowhere. Do not spend money on fast food, gas, going to buy clothes at your local mall. Don't do it. Don't use your credit card or debit card for anything Friday the 28th. If you have to buy some emergency essentials, try to only support small local businesses. You know, if you need if somehow you've run out of food, there's absolutely no food in the house, which we all know is generally unlikely. I mean, come on, dig in the back of the cupboards. Do you know how many canned vegetables and boxed meals and frozen things I find when I clean? We can go 24 hours. Chicago women take action in their email today. Also say, spread the message, talk about it, post about it. And you know what? Take a picture of yourself on Friday the 28th, not spending any money. And as they summarize this, corporations and banks really only care about the bottom line. They will notice. They will notice. So that's your little, we are the resistance and we are here clip for today. Speaking of the resistance, a little while ago, Jennifer Schulze sent me a link. There was apparently some lunch or some breakfast meeting Donald Trump had, seemingly with a group of governors. One of the people in the audience was Janet Mills. That's not a name that I really was familiar with. Governor of Maine. You know, despite what Donald Trump says in this sound clip, Maine is not a super liberal state by any stretch of the imagination. Yes, Angus King is their independent senator who caucuses with the Dems. But Maine is, in my experience from when I was there, Maine is more conservative than not. But Maine, the people of Maine are a sort of prickly independent. They don't want anybody telling them what to do. You know, they are very self-reliant. And their governor, Janet Mills, was at this event. Again, I couldn't tell if it was a breakfast or a lunch. Donald Trump was speaking. And, you know, Donald Trump recently wrote an executive order banning any kind of transgender people from participating in sports. And he was talking to this group about how the NCAA just fell into line and has adopted his new rules that if you are a transgender woman, you do not compete. If you are a transgender man, you do not compete. And he, for some reason, called out Maine Governor Janet Mills. And he wanted to know if she was going to go along with these new regulations, his new executive order. Janet Mills tells him that she is going to follow all state and federal laws. And he has the audacity to tell her that basically he is the federal law. He's the federal law. And that Maine better fall in line because they will get no federal money if they do not. He's not saying we won't fund any of your Title IX or sporting programs. He says to her that the state of Maine will get no federal money, blanket no, if Maine does not agree to his new executive order banning transgender athletes from competing. And you have to listen very closely, but what Janet Mills says to him then is, see you in court. And Donald Trump is a little thrown by that, but, he wants to be big and tough. So he's like, oh, yeah, well, we'll see you in court. We're not afraid of that. Yeah, we've got a really strong case. And then he moves on. Oh, my God. When we, you and me, take to the streets, we scream, we wave our hands around. But politicians tend to be very careful, more careful. Unless we kick them in the butt, they tend to be more careful than we are because, I don't know, I don't want to offend anybody and I don't want to this. This woman is being threatened by Donald Trump. He tells her that unless Maine falls into line, he's going to make sure Maine gets no federal money. And she still sticks it to him. I know Lady B is going to try to boost this a little bit. Be very quiet now because Janet Mills is not on mic. You can hear her. You can hear her tell him that she's going to obey state and federal laws, and you can hear her say, see you in court. But it's difficult. It's not easy to hear. So I want you to be very, very quiet. Lady B is going to turn up the sound so we can all enjoy the resistance brought to you by Maine Governor Janet Mills. Listen to this.
The NCAA has complied immediately, by the way. That's good. But I understand Maine. Is the Maine here, the governor of Maine?
Yeah, I'm here.
Are you not going to comply with it?
I'm complying with state and federal laws.
We are the federal law. Well, you better do it. You better do it because you're not going to get any federal funding at all if you don't. And by the way, your population, even though it's somewhat liberal, although I did very well there, your population doesn't want men playing in women's sports. So you better comply because otherwise you're not getting any federal funding.
See you in court.
Every state, good. I'll see you in court. I look forward to that. That should be a real easy one. And enjoy your life after governor because I don't think you'll be in elected politics.
How's that? Not only am I going to punish your state, but, you're going to be a has-been. I wish, I wish she would have said, hey, you know what? I'm going to be around in political life a hell of a lot longer than you. But, then it would have just escalated. And I think she made her point. Good for you, Janet Mills. Don't you let that guy, that big orange poobah, push you around. Oh yeah, yeah. We'll see you in court. That should be an easy one. Because why, Donald Trump? Because so many of your executive orders have been upheld by judges. Oh, wait, no, that's not true, is it? Most of your executive orders, a majority of your executive orders, the ones that have come up before judges, now the judges either put them on indefinite hold or say that we're going to, whatever it is, we're going to stop until we can look at this more thoroughly. We want to get the arguments. You haven't had very good luck in court, Mr. Trump. I don't know why you think that's going to change, but, you probably know that, right? You probably know that most of the time when your executive orders go to court, they get either stayed or held or struck down. But when have facts ever gotten in your way before? They have not. It is Friday, and we have the phone lines open for the first half of the show. We are also having the text lines at your disposal. Should you feel that that's an easier way to communicate? Like I said, I do read the texts. I don't always read everything on the air because on the text line, people have a tendency to let their freak flag fly. And so they're not always radio friendly. 773-763-9278. Lady B is ready to take your calls. But before we get to the phone lines, I had a long conversation with Joel Ostrow yesterday not about Ukraine so much as about the Russian Constitution and our Constitution and the the fact that we are really in the midst of an attempted coup right now with Donald Trump's pen writing executive orders and Elon Musk's money trying to threaten any Republican who might stand in Trump's way. They are trying to eviscerate the federal government. This isn't about waste, kids. This is about control. And that's what dictators do. They need control. And for anybody who has any questions about what he's doing, you can still download your copy of 2025 Mandate for Leadership. That's the Project 2025, where it goes government agency by government agency of how they are going to take it apart. And that's exactly what they're doing. So yesterday, Joel and I were talking about this. You know, J.D. Vance went to Munich to speak at a big security meeting there. And J.D. Vance took all the European leaders to task that, it was really hypocritical. You know, you need to listen to the press. You need to have a free press. Oh, yeah, JD, that's what you want for this country, a free press? Oh, no, you want a right-wing press. And he basically was talking down to them. And then when he finished his speech, he didn't meet with any government leaders, but he did meet with the Nazis. There's a new Nazi party, a very far-right Nazi re-emerging party in Germany. He met with them. He met with them. He met with the new Nazis. That's the only meeting he had of any importance outside of his speech at the security conference. And Joel was telling us the story of how the chairman of the Munich Security Conference, whose term was ending, it started in 2022, his term was wrapping up. And like apparently everybody there except J.D. Vance, the European leaders recognized that this American democracy that was always there and always supported freedom and resisted tyranny, it's gone. It's gone. They no longer have an ally in us. We are now allied with the bad guys. Donald Trump made a speech where he said that it was Ukraine's fault that Russia invaded them, which is a lie. Said Zelensky was a dictator. He is not. Called for elections, even though that is absolutely impractical. We're having trouble wrapping our head around what's going on, though we're getting better at it. Oh, and we're getting louder about it. We're still struggling to realize that the democracy that we grew up with, right now, it's gone. The Republicans in Congress and in the Senate, the only people who really could right now, because they have majorities, the only people who could apply the brakes to Musk and Trump, the only people who could put speed bumps in the road are not doing that. They're too afraid. So Joel made reference to this Christopher Husgen, who was closing out the conference by basically wrapping things up. And he was brought to tears because we are now the bad guys. We are no longer a part of Western democracy. And he can see it, and the people in the audience can see it. And you know what? Probably J.D. Vance could really see it too. When you choose to speak with the Nazis before you leave, I found the clip that Joel referenced. This is Christoph Hegzen, who's the chairman of the Munich Security Conference. His term is ending. He gave a speech to close the conference, and he gets to a point where he cannot continue because of what he sees happening in the world right now, particularly from us. Listen to this.
After the speech of Vice President Vance on Friday, we have to fear that our common value base is not that common anymore. I'm very grateful to all those European politicians that spoke out and reaffirmed the values and principles that they are defending. No one did this better than President Zelensky. Let me conclude, and this becomes difficult.
And he walked off the stage unable to continue because the world as he knew it, the world that he knew, is no longer because of us, because of Donald Trump, because of J.D. Vance. Okay. A couple days ago, there was a rally in Foley Square in New York City, and AOC spoke to the people there, people like you and me, just angry and not going to take it anymore. There's a little bit of music on this because this was put out, several clips of what she had to say was put out on her own official channel. But I think we need to hear this before we go to break. Listen to AOC speaking at an evening rally at Foley Square in New York City a couple of days ago. Listen to this.
Elon Musk is not going after efficiency. He's not going after making these things better for people. He's trying to steal Medicaid so that he can enrich himself. He is trying to gut everything that is good in America for his own private profit. We have an obligation to resist kings. We have an obligation to resist oligarchs. We will work in the streets, in the courts. We can overwhelm them. And so when they try to come in, make them show a document. Make them assert their authority. Ask them, who are you? We will resist. We will prevail. We outnumber them. America is not for sale.
We can overwhelm them. Yep, there are. I said this before the election, and I'm sorry a bunch of Democrats couldn't be bothered to vote, but there are still more of us than there are of them. And we got to remember that. And, you know, if we have to show up at the offices of our congresspeople and senators to light a fire under them, like when the ACA was at risk, which it probably is again, we'll do that. We'll do what it takes. We're going to take a break. We're going to be back with calls and texts after this.
Take Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive with you on the go by using the TuneIn app on your phone. Just search for WCPT 820.
Out Chicago.
How are you doing?
I am immersing myself in as many positive experiences, i.e. theater, music, whatever I can do.
Look, I keep going back to doing your joy homework.
Yes.
During this point, you know, joy is a practice. And you have to actively seek out the things that bring you joy.
Catch Out Chicago every Sunday, 11 to 1 on WCPT 820. This is Chicago's Progressive Talk, 820 AM, WCPT Willow Springs, and online at WCPT820.com, where facts matter.
Joan Esposito. Join the conversation now at 773-763-9278.
I'm trying to use the phone!
Joan Esposito. Live, local, and progressive on WCPT 820.
I got a text from one of you, our listeners, saying, "Hi, Joan. Regarding the Maine governor's response, I envision a public rally somewhere, anywhere, where everyone carries a sign in all caps, 'See you in court.'" For those of you just tuning in, I played Governor Janet Mills from Maine having an exchange with Donald Trump at a breakfast or some lunch meeting. He was angry with her because his executive order banning transgender athletes from participating, apparently Maine has not officially signed on, and he asked her if she intended to comply. And she said, "I will comply with all state and federal laws." And he said, "Well, basically, I am federal law, and you better comply because Maine will get no federal money. Not no federal money for your sports programs." He said Maine will get no federal money unless you comply. And she said, "See you in court." She's our new favorite hero today. You know, Joy Reid on MSNBC at the end of her program talks about who won the day. Well, Janet Mills won the day for us today. Let's go to Phil, who's on the line from Park Ridge. Phil, you want to talk about that conversation with Joel Ostrow? Go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to follow up on that because I'm wondering if Donald Trump is doing a big favor for Putin, because I'm wondering if Russia is really on the ropes.
It's so interesting that you say that, Phil, because I read, but Russia is so big and they have so many resources that if they really wanted to, they could just roll over Ukraine. And then I also read that they're running out of troops. That's why they're getting troops from North Korea.
Right.
That they're running out of munitions. They're apparently using like World War II era munitions. They're buying drones from Iran that don't work very well. So I'm when I read about this, I feel like I'm reading two different messages. And because I, don't have any independent information of my own on their military capabilities, I don't know what to believe, though I do think that if you made me take a side, I would agree with you that I think that they're hurting, because otherwise, why wouldn't he overrun Ukraine if he could? I don't think he can.
And not only that, but not only is he being weakened militarily because he's losing military equipment, but you got to believe these sanctions that have been in place for 3 years have had to have an effect on his economy.
Mm-hmm. Yes, definitely. And those sanctions were ramped up right before Biden left office because Putin was trying to get around them. The Russian economy is based on their oil sales, and they were like using third parties to try to, we're going to sell the oil to you, and then you sell it to all the people who used to buy it. Trying to get around that. But, the question is, now that we are part of the axis of evil with Putin, how long before Donald Trump attempts to undo every single sanction? It's coming.
Oh, absolutely. But and that's not in our best interest. Our best interest is to watch Russia fail and things can work out. But the other thing I wanted to ask your guest yesterday was, I have a friend that actually worked in Russia a number of years ago, and he was telling me that life for the average Russian is not all that good. That if you get outside of Moscow, there are villages that have no electricity, and outside the pictures of the Kremlin you get, things are not rosy for the average citizen. And I'm wondering if a lot of the people in the United States know that.
Yeah, the economy, the Russian economy has been bad even before they invaded Ukraine. Things were not hunky-dory, remember when Tucker Carlson made his trip to Russia? And he was like, look at this grocery store. It's so fabulous. It's so amazing. It's better than any grocery store I've ever been in the United States. That's been the case for a long time, that life for the average person in Russia is not good. And, the population has been decimated. When he first invaded Ukraine and the Russian people, especially the young ones, saw that they were going to be conscripted, many of them left the country. Then there were the ones who were political opponents who left the country. And, and then there's been I have no idea how many hundreds of thousands of Russians have died in Ukraine. But, that's, I believe it's right now a house of cards. And I think if we can somehow thwart Trump and stay strong, Russia is going to look strong until the day it collapses, and then it's going to collapse big.
Exactly. That's what I'd like to see America call Russia's bluff. But it's not going to happen under Trump.
Not under Trump.
Unfortunately.
Nope.
But I'd like to ask you, did you see the clip this morning of Elon Musk with the chainsaw at some meeting?
No, I didn't.
Well, Joan, it's the most disgusting thing I've ever seen. Because as a manager, I've had to lay off people, good people. And for him to come out with the chainsaw in a celebratory mood was one of the most disgusting things I've ever seen, because you've got people that are being laid off, that have bills, families to confront, and for them to display this, I go, how cruel could this administration be to showcase that?
Yeah.
It's if you see the clip, maybe you can comment later on.
I don't think either Elon Musk nor Donald Trump are capable of any kind of empathy. I really don't. I really don't think that that's a part of who they are. And, so it's. I think we're going to see more of the cruelty.
I'm sure we are, but it just does not speak well for America when this guy gets up and does this thing. It was heart-wrenching to watch. Mm-hmm. Knowing what's going on, to all these families across America of people that are getting laid off and don't have jobs anymore and have bills and families to raise.
And for instance, the state of Virginia. The state of Virginia is filled with people who either work directly for the government or who rely on government contracts for their employment, their private contracts. And, Glenn Youngkin is like, I understand everybody's really scared, but what Donald Trump's doing is really great. But I understand the people of Virginia are hurting. And so at the state level, we're going to come up with some kind of program to help you out. We don't know what it is yet, but we know you're in trouble. I mean, this is what right now Republicans across the spectrum are trying to defend Trump and what he's doing, even though they see their own states, their own districts hurt by this. People out of work. People who, there was a caller to C-SPAN who said, under Biden, my insulin was $6 for a 28-day supply. I just went to the drugstore and it's back at $80 now. I mean, they're like a wrecking ball. And sooner or later, some of these Republicans are going to realize that they have to oppose Donald Trump or their own political career will be over.
And it can't come soon enough.
It can't come soon enough. Thank you for the call, Phil. We got a text from Tom from Tinley Park, which is along the same lines. Joan, every day the world and the American people are seeing just how terrible Musk and the entire clown show is. They have no shame or self-awareness. Agreed. And we have a sound clip. You know how Congress people are in recess this week and they're doing town halls? We're going to take a break, and I want to share with you some of the sound from a town hall held by a Republican congressperson. We're going to take a break. We're going to be back with that in a minute.
Take Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive with you on the go by using the TuneIn app on your phone. Just search for WCPT 820.
You're listening to WCPT 820 because facts matter.
Now back to Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive on WCPT 820.
I mentioned right before we went to the commercial that there have been a number of congresspeople having town halls. Not a huge number of Republican congresspeople, but a few. One of those who did decide to hold a town hall is Congressman Rich McCormick, who represents a district in Georgia. I don't think the town hall went the way he hoped it would go. I think despite his intransigence, she can almost say the word, and his reluctance to concede that his audience was trying to make a particular point, his refusal to acknowledge what he was hearing, despite all that, you have to believe that Congressman McCormick is thinking a lot about what he heard, what was said to him, and what it means for his political future. Listen to this.
Tyranny is rising in the White House, and a man has declared himself our king. So I would like to know, rather, the people would like to know what you, congressmen, and your fellow congressmen are going to do to rein in the megalomaniac in the White House.
I'm not going to give you my best foghorn leghorn response to that. But what I was, you can go ahead and sit down. Thank you. When you talk about tyranny, when you talk about presidential power, I remember having the same discussion with Republicans when Biden was elected. The funny thing is, you're sitting here and a lot of you would probably say those January 6s who are yelling just as loud as you, who are upset just like you.
You are offensive to the people.
Hey, let's get through that. I've seen Game of Thrones too, thank you. Let's go ahead and move on because...
No, they didn't want to move on, Congressman McCormick. They did not want to move on, particularly since you really didn't respond to their question. What are you going to do about this would-be king in the White House? What are you going to do? This is why Republicans are afraid to have town halls. Justifiably so. And let's just not forget that if you are a member of Congress, you have to run for re-election every 2 years. So Mr. McCormick is going to be on the ballot in 2026. And I don't know. I think it's going to be really interesting to see what happens. Maybe that's a congressional district we should pay attention to. Let's go back to the phone lines. John is on the line from Evergreen Park. Hello, John. Thank you so much for the call today.
Tom, thanks for taking my call. I love your show. Listen all the time.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say that I kind of want to switch gears from what I was going to say, but thinking about it long and hard, I can remember back in the day politicians working with each other and making compromise. And given the fact that we have so much against us and they have control of the House, the Senate, the presidency, I think the only way to actually protect things is to try and work with them to, I don't know, protect anything we can at this point. And I feel that,
John, I've like I said, Brad Schneider, a congressman from Illinois, did a telephone town hall, and he did a little survey. He said, do you want me to go along with the Republicans? Do you want me to try to do bipartisan? Do you want me to resist? And people voted for bipartisan. But here's the problem. This current Republican Party, particularly in Congress, has made it very clear that they want nothing to do with the Democratic Party. Mike Johnson has been threatened repeatedly that if he tries to get Democratic votes for anything that he's putting forward, that he will lose his speakership. It takes two to tango. And I'm like you. I grew up in a time.
I agree. But here, listen. I agree with you on that, but sometimes it takes one person to be the first person to make something happen. And I mean, failure, we failed. Clearly, we didn't listen to people, and we're going on about the same stuff. We're more concerned about DEI, protecting the diversity, equity, inclusion, which is important, but obviously it wasn't that important to people in this election cycle, and it's not affecting their lives. So they feel that there are things that he's doing. Maybe it's important to try and protect the government programs we want by working with them and convincing them to keep X, Y,
where
and
do you
Z.
see what one program, what one bill can you offer me where you think we could move forward in a bipartisan manner? I'd love to hear one.
I don't know, but you got to try.
I don't know either, because they've made it clear they don't want to work with us. And you can't just, maybe if these town halls and Republicans keep getting grief, they'll change their mind. But when somebody says, if there is Democrat support for this bill, we will not vote it in, and they're in the majority, I don't know how you break through that until there is enough pressure. If there is enough pressure from their constituents, then I think what you want, John, is possible. I do. And I would love to see it once again. But right now, at this moment in time, when the party who has the majority says they don't want anything to do with you, to the point where if Mike Johnson seeks out Democratic support, they're telling him we will vote you out of leadership. We've got to wait for them to get their crap together. If there are Republicans who are amenable to doing things in a bipartisan manner, the Democrats are more than ready, willing, and able to do that. But when you are completely shut out and told that anything you support is immediately going to be voted down, I don't know what you do with that, John, until the other side is willing to extend an olive branch. I really don't. And I agree with you. That's how I grew up too, John. But, it isn't just the Democrats cannot just go around hat in hand. Oh, please support my bill. It's going to feed starving children. Oh, yeah, but that bill costs money, and you're a Democrat. We're not going there. Right now, we have to deal with the reality of the political world we live in at this moment. And as much as people like John and me would like to see a different political reality, we can't just wish it. We can't just wish it. It takes two to tango, and right now the other side doesn't want to dance. But we can be ready if they do decide they want to dance in the future. And I think, John, if you think Democrats aren't willing to work in a bipartisan manner right now, I think you're selling them short. I think Democrats have tried for too long not to resist with the strength and the passion that Republicans always resist. And maybe in the future that'll change. I'd like to think it could, John. We shall see. We shall see. Let's go to, we've got a caller from Santa Monica, California. Snyder is on the line. Hey, thanks for the call. Did I get your name right?
Hi. It's Naomi Snyder.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Naomi. Sorry about that.
That's all right. That's all right. Listen, regarding the situation with the governor of Maine.
Yes,
Hello?
Janet Mills.
We have a similar situation in California where they want to withhold funds for various things, and they keep.
Oh yeah, disaster aid for California. Well, we'll give it to you as long as you agree to these other bills. That's just crazy. We've never behaved that way.
It's more than that. They're using a lot of things over our heads. Now they're saying they're going to withhold the money for the high-speed rails to connect LA with Las Vegas. Anyway, my thing is, if you can, I'm going to tell you what I'd like, and maybe we can figure out an expert or somebody who can tell us if we can do this. What I would like to see is that we withhold all the blue states where they're doing this kind of nonsense with us, where they're toying with us. We're basically the giver states, not the taker states. Mm-hmm. I would like to withhold all of our federal taxes from them so that they can't do this.
I would love to see that as well. I've talked about that. Yes, I've talked about that. Naomi, here in Illinois, we have a more rural, more conservative downstate. They tend to always vote red, and they're so mad at Northern Illinois and especially Chicago, and they keep saying that they want to secede from the state. Oh, yeah. But they don't understand that it is our money that keeps them afloat. They take more than they give.
They do the same thing in California. California, the people, the conservatives in California keep talking about seceding from the state too. But that's neither here nor there. The blue cities are the ones that generate all the funds, and the funders. I would like to figure out if we can do that. Now, the only thing about this is it's like halfway through secession. It's like one step away from secession. But I really believe that this government needs to learn how much we contribute, and we probably contribute 3/4 of the funds that they use. The blue states probably contribute 3/4 of the funds.
And California,
and then how dare they do it?
Your economy in California is bigger than in most countries of the world.
I know that, but that's not the point. The point is most blue states have a larger economy than the red states, or all of them do. And yes, we have a large economy because we're an amazing state, but so is Illinois and Oregon and Maine and all those states. I really believe that we need to teach them a lesson, and if they don't learn the lesson, we can continue to conclude the secession, because I don't believe. Honestly, I would like to think that we can work together, but I don't believe that that's the case. I think until they learn a lesson, they're not going to want. They're going to keep playing games with us. So anyway, what I would like to see, Joan, is I would like to hear somebody help us figure out how to do this. I think that's our only recourse.
Well, that would certainly get their attention, Naomi. I really thank you so much for calling in today. It's time for us to go to news, but I love your passion and I love your idea and I love the fact that you are willing to fight fire with fire, because I think that's what's going to get us out of this mess. We are going to take a break for news. We're going to be back with more texts and more calls right after this.
Remember when you get to work to hop over to WCPT820.com or the TuneIn Radio app and stream The Stephanie Miller Show. Weekdays 8 to 11 a.m. on Chicago's Progressive Talk, where facts matter. Alexa, play WCPT.
WCPT from TuneIn.
time for Joan Esposito. Live, local, and progressive.
Joan, as always, exceptional work from you from, your TV days all the way up to today. You're truly exceptional, and thanks for this great show you have.
It's time for Joan Esposito on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk.
It is Friday. We spend the first half of every Friday taking your calls and reading your text. Man, I got to tell you, the text line is blowing up today. There is a lot of them, and a lot of people want to comment on John's comment. John, I'm sorry, but most of the people who are texting in say, you know what, we understand where you're coming from, wanting bipartisanship, but we've got to deal with the reality of the world we're living in right now. I want to go back to the phone lines. Our good friend Ron from Chicago is on the line. Hello, Ron.
Hello, Joan. Yes, a couple of years ago I heard that an asteroid the size of Texas is going to hit the Earth in the year 2029. So,
I think you're talking about 2024 YR4. It was supposed to hit in 2032, and I was kind of counting on it for a reset. But the newest risk is that it is almost impossible for it to hit us. So, yeah, we cannot count on that anymore. Our little asteroid is not going to save us.
All right, that's good. And Trump is saying today that Russia invaded Ukraine, so he just doesn't remember what he said the year before. And
he did say that? He said Russia invaded Ukraine?
Yeah,
when did he say that?
This morning he said that Russia...
Yeah.
So,
you know, it's really weird. He was oftentimes erratic during his rallies. And so far we haven't seen a huge amount of that from the White House, but that's who he is. And sooner or later, we're going to see that, what is it? Almost 30% of the days he's been in office so far, he's been golfing. People are talking about how much money it cost for him to go to the Super Bowl and all these other events. He's also really mad at Boeing because he wants a new Air Force One. And it's not coming fast enough, so he wants Elon to put pressure on Boeing. And somebody said, sure, deliver it, And actually what they're suggesting, to hurry up the process, if you work on Air Force One, you have to have a security clearance because otherwise, you might do something bad, either not tighten the bolts that need to be tightened or even worse. And he's saying, that whole security thing, they don't need security clearances. Just get in there and finish it up. So that should be interesting.
Right. And his approval rating is now 45% and dropping. So who knows, in a month or two, it'll be below 40 for sure.
Well, this is what happened before. Usually presidents have a honeymoon period. This one is evaporating much more quickly than they usually do at this rate. I think that even the Republicans are going to have to start backing away from him if they want to survive in political life, because people are not happy with what is happening. He's hurting the very people who voted for him. Farmers, not only Illinois farmers. There was a report, I don't know if it was in the State Journal Register or Block Club, that Illinois farmers who voted for Trump are very nervous. And the Kansas City farmers, or the Kansas State farmers who voted for Trump, are up in arms. They're saying they're going to go bankrupt. I don't understand. I really don't understand. I understand, if somebody is a political enemy, maybe not, if you're going to be slow to help them, but he's hurting the very people who voted for him.
Mm-hmm. Right. And since January 20th, we had the fires in California. We had 20 plane crashes. We had the measles outbreak in Texas, and the price of gasoline is going to go up to $5 soon.
And eggs are, somebody posted on social media that the cheapest eggs they could find were $8 a dozen.
Right. president, the Republicans will be already making out their impeachment papers. You can be sure of that.
Oh, without question. Without question.
Yeah. And also one more thing at the Tesla Corporation, when they lay off somebody, they call it a upward promotion.
Yeah.
Like out the door.
Yeah. Up and out.
Right.
We're going to be seeing a lot more of that.
Oh, yeah. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, Ron. Thank you for the call. Let's go to Palos Park. Ed is on the line. Hi, Ed.
Hi, Joan. How are you?
I'm pretty good.
Great. I was so glad to hear Governor Mills rebutting Trump's aggressive statements towards her. We need more to be strong and take a stand like that. I was also happy to hear from when Governor Pritzker made his speech the other day, how he was so impactful, and he didn't hold any punches whatsoever regarding the behavior of Trump. I would like to see him, Senator Blumenthal, and Senator Murphy, also very strong spokesmen in their own states, form a coalition, possibly, to get an aggressive task force to just saturate the entire nation with the disgraceful behavior of Trump. And, in the future, also, I would like to see someone like Oprah Winfrey come out and make some statements, because the reality of this entire situation is that we are in a fight for our life. And when I talk to various Republican friends of mine, I find out that they are so totally misinformed about the actual truth. It's sinful. And no matter what you try to tell them or whatever you try to convey, that I get my facts after checking numerous sources, I know they're accurate, and these people insist that they are right.
Well, you just hit on the key, Ed. Multiple sources. Nobody should rely on any one source of information for their entire worldview. You got to cross-check. That's why, I spend the morning reading all these newsletters. I read the Washington Post. I've got the Chicago Tribune. I've got the Wall Street Journal. I've got the Sun Times, because you get a different viewpoint on the news of the day. And then I can look at all of that and decide what resonates and what seems to be commonalities. And most of the people who I talk to who are Republicans and voted for Trump, they have one source of information. Oftentimes it's Fox Cable. And as has been demonstrated repeatedly, if there's anything negative to Trump or Republicans, Fox doesn't mention it. If Trump says or does something bad, they'll talk about something completely different. You do not get a good worldview if you I would say, don't even always watch MSNBC. Don't always watch CNN. Mix it up.
Yes. Also, Joan, the media, with their failure to the reporters, when they interview him, afraid to ask him a hard question, always a softball question, afraid of intimidation by him. I would like to see one show some guts and just get out there and ask him a tough question and see how he handles it, But they just seem to be afraid of this, whatever you want to call them, and it's terrible. So, we do need strength. We need more people to stand up, especially the ones in influential positions, like celebrities. I think it would be good, and we just need an entire group to take a stand against what's going on.
Yeah. Thank you for the call, Ed. I've got to get to a break. And when we come back, I'm really going to try to get to all the calls that are remaining. We have, I think, 5 people. We're going to do it lickety-split. So let's take a break and be back with more after this.
Hey, Progressives, it's Richard Chu, host of Chu's Views, weekdays from 6 to 8 a.m. here on WCPT. I want to let you know that one of our leading progressive voices, Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson, will be my guest the first Friday of each month at 7:30 a.m.
There are so many people who want to understand how decisions are made, and there are many people who want to know that they are included in those decisions.
Mayor Brandon Johnson, the first Friday of every month on Chu's Views here on WCPT.
Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT 820, where facts matter.
Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive. Every weekday afternoon from 2 to 5 p.m. on WCPT 820.
Well, I'm really sorry. Our good friend Bobby from Indiana just hung up. I guess he couldn't wait any longer, which was interesting because he said he had some news for us. Maybe Bobby will call back and we can get his news. Or Bobby, you know what? Why don't you text me and I'll read it on air. So let's go to Jim, who's on the line from Chicago. Hello, Jim.
Hi, Joan. The latest addition to the walnut cabinet, emphasis on the nut. Cash Patel, one can only imagine what his itinerary is. Let's get every Democrat in the country. But I contend that Fisher Nuts couldn't separate these nuts on their best day. When you think about these absolutely bizarre people taking over, real quick, Joan, you see what flu is going through the ceiling. A serious flu is going through the ceiling. You have to be careful because if your immune system is a little bit down, this is a dangerous flu. You've got measles going berserk, and you've got a party of people that don't believe in vaccinations. So that's just one of the things. Going forward is just kind of cross the shark-infested ocean or whatever. I mean, it's just amazing. But just think of all these crazy people that are in the cabinet. But let alone
that's going to be a real joyride. That is going to be a real joy. Yeah. And, I suspected, Mitch McConnell voted against 2 of the cabinet picks, but he only did so knowing that his vote really wouldn't derail them. This was an instance with Kash Patel. There were 2 Republicans, Lisa Murkowski and Susan Collins, who voted against him. If Mitch McConnell had added his vote against Kash Patel would not have been seated. Oh, but when it really matters, Mitch McConnell capitulates. He voted for Kash Patel. So he's just a hypocrite.
Anyway, Joan, you have a great weekend and get to your callers. Thank you, dear.
Absolutely. We have Dennis on the line from Evanston. Hello, Dennis.
Hi. Hey, Joan. How are you? Great to be here today. I liked very much the piece that you had with the town hall, and I think that's something that more and more people need to see, because there are a lot of people who don't think that Republicans are upset. They think we're making this up. And Georgia is a red state, and I think it's really important to let people know that. And the crazy part is even when you give them the facts, they don't. They come up with something else. We know for a fact that in Alabama, people are getting their electric is being.
They got a letter saying that they have to pay a $100 surcharge. It came from the Huntsville, Alabama utility company because they were getting federal money that subsidized the bills a little bit, and that money is now gone. So all the people who live in Alabama and are served by them have to pony up an extra $100.
Right. So one person I know said to me, I have relatives in Alabama. This is misinformation. You're lying. So they're not being touched, so they don't believe it. That's awful. The other thing that I think is super important, and I'm not sure what the answer is, and I'm not sure how to make it work, but a couple people have said it already. We need to have the spokespeople out there doing it. And I don't know who they are. I don't know if it's from Hillary Clinton down to Pete Buttigieg or somebody we don't even know who it is yet. But we need to let people know and let them understand what's going on, because even if you or I tell somebody who's a Republican, look, this is in the Constitution, this shouldn't be done this way, and they're like, well, it's okay because he's using executive orders, and you've mentioned it many times, and I shared this today. If with the executive orders, most of them could have gone through as a law, why is he doing that? And my statement was to people, he's trying to castrate the Congress. You know what someone's answer was? Why didn't you get upset when Joe Biden issued executive orders? I don't think he was signing 10 of them every other day. But,
no. Donald Trump Joe Biden did issue some executive orders. Every president does. But right now, Donald Trump has a majority in Congress, a majority in the Senate. I think he wants, this is partly for show. He wants to look like he's doing things. And in fact, one of the polls that talked to people a week or two ago, they were like, oh, he's doing so much. And if you try to actually get some of this enacted as law, that's a slower process. You have to write up the bill, has to go to the committee, gets out of the committee, gets voted on by Congress, gets voted on by the Senate. Generally, the two versions have to come together. It's a slower process, and he wants people to think that he is just on top of things and working like a crazy person. So, yeah, I thank you. Thank you for the call, and thank you for that insight. Let's go to our good friend Dave, who's calling in from Hoffman Estates. Hello, Dave.
Hey, Joan. Happy Friday. I was just telling Lady V and I just got done reading a story from The Guardian where the French far-right leader, Jordan Bardella, canceled a scheduled speech at CPAC today due to Steve Bannon flipping out that Nazi salute and or fascist style salute, if you will.
Oh, I didn't see that Steve Bannon was a part of that. Poor Steve Bannon. Yeah. He's trying so hard to be one of the clique, but see, Donald Trump has now found richer guys. Bannon used to be like the rich guy who was advising Trump, but now Trump has really rich guys around him. And poor Steve Bannon, I think, is trying really hard to be relevant. And I think life's a little bit difficult for him these days.
But this Bardella pulled out because he said, citing Bannon's allusion to Nazi ideology. And then also when Bannon was up there speaking, and he screeched out about that we want Trump in 28. To go along what Trump had been saying. And talking on that Nazi salute, let's go back, about 5-6 years ago. Again, story, you can find it in The Guardian if you look. And it's not too far from home. When there was a photo of these boys from Baraboo High School, Wisconsin, class of 2019. They're all doing a Nazi salute.
Ugh.
Anywho, how about that market? Nice sell-off. Dow is down 748.
The Dow is really tanking today. What is it? Last I looked, it was down like 800 points.
Well, it closed out at 748, and the NASDAQ 438 down, S&P down 104, and
yeah.
I'm sure he'll blame it, find some way to blame it on Biden.
Of course. He's not ever going to take responsibility for everything. But trust me, he's paying attention to that because he doesn't want Wall Street to abandon him. He wants Wall Street on his side. So we'll see. But, we'll see how it goes because there have been things that Trump did that Wall Street's liked. So I don't know. They're somewhat fickle. But, man, there is a huge sell-off today, a monster sell-off. Dave, thank you so much for the call.
Yeah,
always a
thanks,
pleasure.
Joe, for taking it. Be well. Have a good one.
You too. Have a great weekend. Let's go to Roosevelt, who is on the line from Chicago. Hey, Roosevelt.
Joe, have a happy weekend. Thank you for taking my call. I know you got a lot of calls coming through. Best as possible. Isn't it something? The Banana Republic down in South America, Brazil, is getting ready to put to jail Bolsonaro. Did you hear about that one?
Yeah, Javier Bolsonaro. They are actually getting ready to put him on trial for, trying to do what very similar to what Trump is trying to do right now.
Precisely my point. My point. So the Banana Republic is flipped. The Banana Republic has a better democracy than we had. Okay, we had 4 years, couldn't do nothing with this guy, and that's thanks to our great DOJ that we had, our leader there. So that's one point I want to make. And have you heard of this? This is weird. This is out of left field. So for the past 2-3 days, this knucklehead keeps on calling in Spanish and saying this. He's saying that it never gives where he gets this information. Of course, it's got to be Fox News. But I searched. Maybe you got somebody else that you can count on that to figure this out. And he said twice already that Zelensky is going to cave in and he's going to move to Florida. And this is just
first of all,
out of the blue.
If Zelensky was going to move here, my guess is he would move to Chicago because I believe at the last count we have 100,000 Ukrainian Americans in Chicago and the Chicago area. So, no, I don't think Zelensky is going to capitulate, nor is he going to move to Florida. Oh, my God, Roosevelt. Thank you for bringing us this absurd thing that put a smile on our faces today. We got to go. We've got to get to a break. By the way, if you are on social media, I hope you're on Blue Sky. If you are, follow me at joanesposito.bsky.social, and you will see I have a map of that body of water between Florida and Mexico, and I've renamed it the Gulf of the Lovely Talented Joan Esposito. You may share this graphic if you so choose. We are going to take a break and be back with Ed Yonka from the ACLU after this.
Podcasts of Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive, are available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, iHeartRadio, YouTube, and Amazon. Just search for Joan Esposito.
This is Chicago's Progressive Talk, 820 AM, WCPT Willow Springs, and online at WCPT820.com, where facts matter.
Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive on WCPT 820.
I am very pleased to welcome back to our airwaves Ed Yonka from the American Civil Liberties Union of Illinois. Before we begin our discussion, though, I would like Lady B to play a sound clip. Ed, on Monday, I interviewed Peter Fenn, who's a Democratic political strategist, and he had something to say that I thought you should hear. Lady B, go play Peter Fenn.
What's happening now is if you're given money, give it to the lawyers. Give it to the ACLU. Give it to legal groups that are bringing these court cases, over 50 of them now, all over the country. Support that effort because we've got to win a good portion of these court cases, and we've got to do it fast.
How do you like that, Ed? A little PSA for the ACLU? You didn't even know it happened, and now there you go.
That is pretty incredible. And, let me say that he couldn't be more right, though, about the need for us to win these cases that are happening early. I was just on a webinar last night that the National ACLU did, in which we were joined by like 15 states' attorneys general from across the country, and you look at the work that the state's attorneys general are doing, you look at the work that other groups like, Lambda and Democracy Forward and other groups like that are doing, the goal here, of course, is to slow down this harm before it engulfs too many people, and then, get to work on permanent fixes around this. And, I have to say, for all of the bluster and the craziness and the chaos of the last month, there are good things that are happening.
Oh, my God, please share a few of those with us right now. We're going into the weekend. We need this, Ed.
Okay, well, can I just start with one before we start talking about this?
Sweetheart, this is your hour. You do what you want. I'm here to serve you.
Joan, I became a grandfather for the first time this morning.
Woohoo! Congratulations!
And so, you know what? I have a whole new reason for continuing to do this work. She's really, really cute. And when we're done today, I'm going to go meet her. So that is one good thing. But seriously, let's talk about this. Think about it. On the first day in office, the president thought that he could rewrite the Constitution of the United States with the stroke of a pen by ending birthright citizenship. We went to court. Attorneys general went to court. That's been blocked. I think it's highly likely that litigation will be successful. Not only is there ample evidence that birthright citizenship was intended to be extended to everyone, including people who had emigrated to the United States, but it is also true that I think it's also true that the fact that it has been in place for so long and well accepted and well established means that the president just can't simply rewrite something on his own and change the interpretation of the Constitution. On the first day in office, he, attempted to end asylum and to expand fast-track deportation. Again, on both of those areas, the ACLU went and sued him. We haven't yet got restraining orders, but, we are putting them on the defensive in terms of those kinds of actions and activities. We are seeing that their quote, mass deportation plan is not really coming into focus in the way that they claimed. So I think that those are areas that we can look at as being places where, again, some sand in the gears are slowing it down. In a kind of a strange development, you'll recall that there were 300 or so people who were moved to Guantanamo Bay, removed to Guantanamo Bay from the United States. They were all Venezuelans. The claim was that they were all dangerous criminals. It turns out that wasn't true. There were many of the folks who were removed to Guantanamo who had literally no criminal record whatsoever. The ACLU sued seeking access to those people for purposes of assuring that they had legal representation. I wouldn't call this a complete success, but they've actually been moved out of Guantanamo Bay now. Some of them moved to other Latin American. Yes,
but does that mean that
yesterday?
That because I saw that video of the military aircraft and what looked like maybe 6 people in shackles being escorted off the plane. So are the immigrants who were flown to Gitmo, is it just a few of them that are gone, or are they all gone?
What we think as of now, according to reports, is that all of them have left Gitmo. I think one of the things is, folks are trying to figure out where they've gone. Some of them may have gone to Panama, where we've seen the awful conditions in which people are being held in Panama. But at least those are places where, legal groups and direct legal services have been accustomed to connecting with folks. And so we're seeing some activity there. we're seeing stops again in terms of, some of the efforts at, really singling out and harming transgender folks, including transgender youth. As you know, one of the things is that there was this effort to, to block any kind of gender-affirming care for people 19 years of age and younger. The ACLU challenged that, along with Lambda and some other organizations representing PFLAG across America. We've got an injunction, a temporary restraining order in that case. There's some attorneys general on the West Coast who filed the same sort of lawsuit. They have a temporary restraining order in their case. So again, we're seeing some developments around there. On passports for people who are transgender, there was an effort to suggest, we were seeing people who were going in to try to change the gender marker or change the name on their birth certificate, that their birth certificates were getting seized actually and weren't getting them back when they submitted them to passports officials. That practice is now ended, and in fact, the State Department has said that they will recognize current passports for as long as they're valid, even if they have the X marker that the administration claims that they're going to eliminate. I think, again, we'll see how far the litigation goes in terms of challenging a lot of these other practices. But I think there's a picture of groups like the kind of a little bit of a public-private partnership with states' attorneys general, with the ACLU, with other organizations going to court and challenging these labor unions in some of the activities that's happening with regards to federal employees and what's happening with federal employees. What you're really seeing, I think, is an effort to limit, number one, the absolute coalition of power in the executive branch and in the hands of one person. And then secondly, I think you're really seeing, efforts to kind of stop that, assess where we are and figure out long-term pushbacks to limit the damage that this does to people all across the country. It's not easy. It's been a lot of work in a month. But the thing is that is, that's the work right now that we have to be doing.
You mentioned birth certificates. I also read something about Trump, the Trump administration refusing to process any passport applications, because apparently there was the application was changed. And you can, you can choose male, female, or X. And apparently anybody who submitted a passport application and checked X, that those applications were being returned, refused. What can you tell us about that?
What we were hearing a number of different things. A lot of it's really kind of a strange circumstance, Joan, in the first, few days of that enforcement. So you were hearing some instances where if you went to a particular office and and there was a particular clerk, they would actually be processed. If you went to an office and the clerk wasn't friendly, they might just say, we can't do that. But there were also instances in which they were actually seizing people's documents and not returning them. Again, that last practice of seizing documents, that has been stopped, even just as the result of the litigation that's been filed. They aren't keeping people's documents. I think it's going to take a longer time to see, whether or not they're willing to, process documents, whether or not they're going to be compelled ultimately to make name changes or to use the X marker But the other thing is that people were expressing real concerns about whether or not their passports were still going to be valid. For example, as a non-binary person, if you had the X marker, given the fact that the administration was saying they didn't recognize it. But, again, now the State Department has backed off of that. They said they're really going to, they are going to recognize that. People are free to travel and to use those passports for the moment. I mean, it's still a mess, and there's still people out there who are being harmed. I don't want to minimize that in any way, shape, or form, but I think you're beginning to see, as I say, the shoots of progress in terms of pushing back against these things, which, frankly, he never had the power to do in the first instance.
Yeah. Well, that's why he's doing it by executive order, because he knows what a lot of what he wants to accomplish isn't legal. Ed, we're going to take a break. When we come back, I want to talk to you about since we're talking about the subject of gender and trans people, Lurie's Children's Hospital said that they were going to pause some of their transgender care for kids under the age of 19 or something like that. And they originally made this announcement before there had been any kind of order. And when they first publicly announced it, they said, well, they were afraid. They were afraid that some of their federal funds might be cut off if they kept doing this. But it stood out to me because, the famous Timothy Snyder book on tyranny, Don't Obey in Advance. And it sure seemed like Lurie's was obeying in advance. They still, by the way, are saying that this care is paused, but now they're saying it's because of a Trump executive order. I want to talk about what is going on locally and what people can do about it. I'm talking to Ed Yonka from the American Civil Liberties Union of Illinois. We will be right back after this.
If you've missed any of today's show, you can listen on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, iHeartRadio, YouTube, Amazon, or HeartlandSignal.com. Just search for Joan Esposito. Live, local, and progressive.
Because facts matter. You're listening to WCPT 820.
Now back to Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive on WCPT 820.
I'm joined by Ed Yonka of the American Civil Liberties Union of Illinois. And just today on their webpage, WBEZ Chicago is posting a story by Kristen Skorch about transgender teens. Lurie's Children's Hospital in Chicago made this announcement. Now they're saying it's because of an executive order, but they made an announcement that they were pausing transgender care before there was an executive order. They were, at the time, it was like, well, we're afraid that we'll lose some of our federal funding, but they did it. The federal government hadn't sent them a letter to Lurie's saying stop this or else. They did it in fear of what might happen. Now, of course, they're saying, well, there's a presidential executive order and we're just following it. But they've left a lot of families in the lurch. Transgender kids commit suicide at a rate much higher than the average population. And I don't understand this kind of, especially for a Chicago hospital. I thought that was so disappointing that Lurie's was capitulating before they even were put under any kind of microscope. What's going on with that as far as you know, Ed?
It's a little bit disappointing and confusing, and we don't have much more insight than what you saw in Kristen's reporting this morning. And I want to say a special word because I think the families who talked to her, are just immensely brave in this moment to come forward and to, make their voice heard where that is concerned. What we know, I can tell you what we know is that the president issued an executive order that said that any healthcare facility across the country that provided gender-affirming care to people who were 19 years of age and under would lose all their federal funding, Medicaid, Medicare, everything. We know that a number of institutions across the country ceased any kind of care at that point. Hospitals in Illinois, facilities in Illinois that provided that care, for the most part, did not cease all care. They continued to provide medication. They continued to provide counseling. They continued to provide a range of other care for their patients, but they did pause or cancel surgeries. And so that was, that was something that Lurie's did that we'd see, and that I should say that we'd seen other facilities do across the country. In the interim, as I mentioned previously, the ACLU, in our case in in Maryland, and the attorneys general, 4 attorneys general from the West Coast in Seattle, got a temporary restraining order banning the execution or the implementation of that executive order. And I would say that, we would have hoped as a result of that these facilities, would have unpaused whatever care they had paused before. But what, we see in this reporting today and what we've seen in some reporting around the country is that there appear to be institutions which are at the very least kind of looking for or wanting to see a more permanent kind of outcome to the litigation, perhaps getting to a preliminary injunction phase. I don't want to get all into the weeds on civil procedure here. A temporary restraining order is something that's limited in time. A preliminary injunction really is where the court sees the plaintiffs having a much greater likelihood of success and therefore pauses any enforcement of the order itself. And it may be that they're waiting for that. But the flip side of that, whatever the calculus is on the part of the institutions, the healthcare institutions, the flip side of that is what you're seeing from the, from the parents who, in many instances, as the story indicates, have waited months for these surgeries. Their children have waited months, for this surgery as well, have looked forward to it. It is part of their, transition and affirming process. And they feel very strongly about the need to do that. And, we're in this, a little bit of this world where it's a little hard to figure out, what happens next with some of those. I think as that reporting and some others indicated, there are some other facilities that are still doing the procedures. The problem with that is that for many of these families, then you have to sort of get back in line to get through the evaluation process and the scheduling process. And, there's a limited, candidly, there's always been a limited number of people who do this work. So there's a lot of this that's just, that causes delay. And as you say, for a person who's in the process of transitioning, some of these surgeries can be really affirming, are really important to their well-being and their mental health. And so, it's concerning that they are, that this pause continues. And I think we're in the position right now of trying to figure out, what is going on and how that works. I mean, the Attorney General of Illinois has made clear that, gender affirming care is lawful here and can I think is, said as much as the fact that it can go forward. And so it's just a matter of, I think, these institutions doing whatever assessment they do and being able to move these forward again. And we hope that will happen soon. I will say, and I don't want to let anybody, sort of get a pass here, but let's all remember that the root of this is the confusion and the acrimony which is created by Donald Trump and his special brand of division and hatred. This war on trans folks is causing this confusion and causing, the differences between the way different healthcare providers are assessing all of this. And what we really need is for a court to definitively strike down this executive order to send a strong signal to all of these providers across the country that they can move forward.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think a lot of people, though, have a fear that, some of this is going to work its way up to the Supreme Court. And, obviously the Supreme Court doesn't take every case that comes its way. But the Supreme Court that we have right now seems to be more interested in following a Republican partisan agenda, making things easy for Donald Trump, than it cares about really holding up our laws. And are you worried about some of these things? I mean, there's right now in the pipeline a couple of cases that could be used to strike down Obergefell and end, the federal right to gay marriage. This and with the gender affirming care. I mean, can we count on the Supreme Court to do the right thing?
I think the answer to that is probably not in every case. I think, as an example, they are considering a case, as as to whether or not, and this is the question, they're considering a case now as to whether or not states can block gender-affirming care for people under the age of 18. I think the question is, are they willing to extend that to allow an executive order to use the coercion of funding to block any sort of care, even where that care is lawful, in states that don't take the action of making that unlawful? And I think that one of the things that this court is going to have, two of the things this court is going to have to grapple with is whether or not they're going to permit an executive order, because I think this would be far different if Congress passed a law, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so I think one of the things that they're going to have to grapple with is, and this is an example I use just to think about this, does Donald Trump as president have the executive authority to determine what health care is and isn't available across the country, even though there's no statutory authority for his trying to insert himself into that decision, when this very same court said that Joe Biden did not have the authority to forgive student loans, when in fact there was underlying statutory authority for him to do that. Mm-hmm. And so I think one of the things that they're going to have to wrestle with is the question of, do any of their precedents matter? Are they going to be just overtly political? And if they do that, I think the two things that they're going to have to grapple with are, number one, there will one day be a Democratic president again who, they can't then roll back all of these things, or if they try, folks are simply going to ignore them. And I don't think this is a court of all the things that there are. I don't think this is a court that wants to be ignored.
Yeah, I definitely don't think John Roberts wants to be ignored. I'm talking with Ed Youngka of the American Civil Liberties of Illinois, and we have so much more to cover. We are going to take a break for news, and Ed and I are going to be back. And I do want to point out that this interview I'm doing right now with Ed Youngka is going to be available as a podcast. Go to Joan Esposito featured interviews wherever you get your podcasts, and you will be able to re-listen or share with someone who wasn't able to listen today this interview I'm doing with Ed Youngka. But right now we're going to take a break for news, and we'll be back with more after this.
The Thom Hartmann radio program provides all of the intelligence, information, and insight you'll need to win the water cooler wars. Weekdays 11 to 2 right here on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk, where facts matter. Hey Google, play WCPT.
Streaming Chicago's Progressive Talk from TuneIn.
Joan Esposito, live.
Celebrating our power to bring about change.
Local.
Everybody has to work together.
And progressive.
I think you get the idea.
On WCPT 820.
And with me is Ed Youngka from the American Civil Liberties Union of Illinois. In addition to the legal cases they bring and, efforts to get people to sign up and become a member of the ACLU, there's often emails that go out that have a button that you can click to send a message to various lawmakers to protest things that are going on, especially in this day and age. And one of those recently that I received was a petition to keep Doge, or Dodgy as we like to call it, out of our data. And I know that this has been something else that the ACLU has been working against. This unvetted human being, Elon Musk, this unelected human being, Elon Musk, who has his teenage flying monkeys going to agency after agency to try to get into the computer systems and access sensitive data. It is stunning to me, Ed, what is happening. It's also disappointing to me that there isn't a single Republican who seems willing to stand up against this and call it, outrageous and illegal. But the ACLU is trying to take a stand here. And I know that I think the last email I got from the ACLU said over like 140,000 people have written to their members of Congress to let them know that this ridiculous, unrestricted, unaccountable access to our private information has got to stop. Talk a little bit about what's going on with Doggy. Doggy.
Well, first of all, I'm really glad that you said this, Joan, because it's interesting when I go out, and speak in public when I go out, even if it's about issue A. This is the first question that I get from people. What are we doing about Doge, right? The Doge bros are out there, rooting around in federal data, and isn't there anything that protects us?
Yeah.
And the reality is that there are, very, very hard-won, important and critical federal privacy laws that candidly have enjoyed bipartisan support for many years. I think it's one of the things that is truly remains bipartisan in our country is the idea that our data ought to belong to us and not to some government entity.
What a concept.
And not be misused by, a government entity. And so, one of the things that has happened is that the ACLU has done two things. The first is what you identified, which is, we have been asking people to write or call their members of Congress, and I would encourage, all of your listeners, if they haven't done so, to reach out to your member of Congress and say that the appropriate committees, and candidly, given all the departments they're in, that's many, ought to be having oversight hearings to figure out how these unelected quasi-government officials, it's not even clear to me what their role is. I mean, in court filings, they're referred to in different ways at different times. It's not even clear now whether or not Mr. Musk is even the head of Doge in some of the court filings. But that just to take a look and say, what have they accessed? What are they doing with that data? Has any of it been copied? What's happening with it? The second thing that we're doing is attempting through Freedom of Information Act requests to find out, again, just any information. This is our government. They say they want transparency. So let's be transparent about precisely what they're doing in terms of the data that they are either collecting or capturing, and who has control of that data and where is it going and where is it being used. Because, one of the things that we believe, I would say, and fear is that data is then being utilized in a fashion that could risk the privacy of all of us when you start thinking about IRS records and the links to our bank accounts and, a whole range of other information about, any of us who've ever filed an application for, a job or a contract through the federal government. All of that information is supposed to be private, and there are laws that protect that. Let me say one last thing about all this, because I think this is the thing that, we ought to be, we need to be thinking about if somebody asks why all of this is important, is that, I think underlying all of the firings that we read about and all the concerns that we have about that, and I think underlying all of this access to personal and private data that DOJ is doing is, what appears to be a pretty strong effort on the part of Musk and his acolytes, or a pretty strong belief on their part that somehow they can just write some sort of AI code that can substitute for, human intelligence in terms of making judgments and making decisions about the ways in which government behaves. And, one of the things that we know about AI is that it is most often, kind of infected or infused with all of the biases that exist in our society. So, you'll have people who'll say, well, this will be more efficient and more fair. Well, it may be more efficient, but it's often less fair because there isn't a human check on the kind of biases that exist in our society. And so I think that it is, just one more thing, that really merits watching, not just what are they doing in these government agencies, what are they doing with our data, but then what do they intend to do next? Do they think that data is going to train an AI machine to make decisions on behalf of the U.S. government?
Yeah. This, some people are speculating that part of the reason, not only to impress his MAGA base, but part of the reason that Donald Trump is trying to do so much so quickly is the hope that people will be overwhelmed, that people won't know where to focus. How is the ACLU deciding where to focus?
I think that's a really great question, and I think what we have been trying to do is, number one, I think there were things we anticipated from Project 2025 from the very first day. Mm-hmm. So you may recall that, for example, birthright citizenship was a big part of, was a huge part of Project 2025. You remember that document that President Trump had never heard of?
Yeah.
Didn't know anything about.
Well, first he was very thankful it had been created. Then he didn't know the people who were writing it. And then he didn't know anything about it at all.
At all, yes. And then he had a bunch of executive orders that seemed to match it exactly. I don't know. It seems strange. Mm-hmm. But what we saw, and I think what we did was we looked at Project 2025 and we said, what are the things that they're likely to do quickly? And we predicted things like birthright citizenship. We predicted things like trying to shut down asylum and trying to expand, fast-track deportation. We looked at the things around, transgender health care. And a number of issues like that where they would try to do things instantly. And we were prepared to sue, to push back against those instantly. And that was one of the things that we did. I think the next thing that we did, is that, it took us a minute, given all of that activity, it took us a minute to then look at, what were some possible grounds for action around other things that are happening. And I think that's where the Doge one is one of the greatest examples, because, you literally had, this effort, you have this effort to go in and take private federal data. And so I think that was a place where now we sort of see a toehold there to both push back through the political mechanisms, but also legally, depending on what we get out of the FOIA requests, or if we don't get that information, to sue to get that information and then use that for potentially further action. And then finally, I think there are other areas that we're going to have to see how they play out. And we're beginning to get, I think, some sense of that. I think in that respect, some of the executive orders and some of the actions around, for example, education, cutting off federal funding to any college or university that does any kind of DEI programs or, any kind of equity programs at all. I think those are things that, we along with others have been looking at how that plays out. I think looking at, ultimately what does a Trump education policy writ large, this so-called patriotic curricula that that they claim they're going to roll out, which I don't think will look either accurate nor patriotic. So I think that those things are the things that we're probably looking at, in the next kind of wave of things in the next month or 2 months as this sort of begins to sink in. So, I think what we've tried to do is look where there's going to be harm instantly, and we knew what was coming, and act. Then assess where the biggest harm is being done in the second wave and act. And then I think we're going to continue that on as we go. I was thinking last night, over the course of the first Trump administration, we filed some 400 separate actions against the administration in those 4 years. My guess is we may get to, somewhere upwards of 150 or so in the first year of this administration. And, I think those will, many of those will look different in 9 months than they do after 1 month.
Yeah. I'm speaking with Ed Yanka from the American Civil Liberties of Illinois, Civil Liberties Union of Illinois. We are going to take a break and continue our talk right after this.
Out Chicago.
The media has been manipulated with propaganda and fear, and this is what has brought us where we are today. More than ever, people are looking at just one news source, and that's it.
What they're doing, they're looking at their phone.
Phones. Well, that's their source.
They are looking
that's their
at
source.
Yeah, I know. They're looking at their phone. They're hearing opinion. They're hearing misinformation. They're not looking at sources.
Catch Out Chicago every Sunday, 11 to 1 on WCPT 820. Hey, Google, play WCPT.
Streaming Chicago's Progressive Talk from TuneIn.
Don't turn that dial. Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive, returns right now.
A fair balance where the facts come out.
On WCPT 820.
I'd like you to know that March 20th in Logan Square, there is going to be an ACLU of Illinois event you can attend. Michelle Garcia, the ACLU of Illinois Deputy Legal Director, going to lead a Know Your Rights, immigrant rights training in English. This is going to be at Pilot Project Brewing in Logan Square. Again, it is on March 20th, and it is an event that you can attend. You can go to the ACLU website and RSVP. I don't think that there is a ticket cost. but you need to go to the RSVP line to let them know that you will be at Pilot Project Brewing in Logan Square on March 20th. Also, those of you who have very good memories will remember that last week I spoke to Wisconsin Congressperson Mark Pocan. He represents Wisconsin's 2nd District, and he put out, Democrats have no hope of getting anything out of committee, but he wrote up basically it's a Stop Elon Musk bill. He believes in good trouble and publicizing what is going on right now. Mark Pocan had some thoughts for those of you who want to support this resistance efforts. Listen to the congressman.
What's happening right now is pretty horrendous. Thankfully, there's a lot of good litigation. Lawsuits are our friends right now. That's what's going to help us. We all can do more. We all have to work together on this. There's inside and outside of the building. That's why supporting those groups doing the lawsuits is really, really important right now, because that's our best path to victory.
I am joined by Ed Yanka of the American Civil Liberties Union of Illinois. Ed, another testament to the fact that we better support the lawyers, because they right now are looking like our first and possibly our middle line of defense against the illegality of the new White House administration.
Yeah, it's so amazing. It's something. I told this story, Joan, about 2 weeks ago now. I guess it would have been about 10 days ago. I went down to Pekin, Illinois, to the Pekin High School, and did a day-long group of government classes and was talking about the Constitution. And I said, what are some features of the Constitution you think are really important? And one student in one of the classes, and I can just say, this is in a fairly conservative area of the state of Illinois, and one of the students said, well, I really think that separation of powers are important. And I said, well, why do you think that's important? And he started, to explain why he thought it was important. He said, because, and he stopped. He goes, really in the bottom line, we don't want for too much power, and you could just see it click in. And he was like, we don't want too much power in the hands of one person. And he just stopped. I said, yes, that's exactly right. And I think that, one of the things is when you have the branch that usually would check the executive taking away the power of the purse would actually be the Congress. The branch that would check the executive branch just letting someone run wild across agencies would be the Congress of the United States. They'd cut off any funding for that activity. They'd just simply stop it. But, because Congress isn't doing that, the place we have to go to is the courts and use litigation. But that is only a step to raising up these issues in a way. And that's why, the Washington Post and, there's some other groups out there, Lawfare and other groups, who frankly are doing trackers on the litigation that's happening against the Trump administration. I would encourage folks to go and look at that like every day. First of all, it's changing every day. But the other part of it is that knowing what's going on in the litigation also gives you a set of talking points and a kind of a direction to point to where things are actually being identified as an abuse. And I think that's something that we really all need to be thinking about and doing together as well.
Where do we go to track this information? Is there a particular site that you think is a good one?
I will tell you, some of my colleagues here, there's some that like law firms have done in that. I personally like the Washington Post. They have a tracker of Trump's executive orders and the litigation against them. I really like that one. I'll tell you, because frankly, it's easy to read and it expands to, in certain areas to explain where things stand, what's happening, and what the impact is. And I find that one easy for me to follow, to sort of go along with. So that's the one that I use. There are a number of them out there. If you just Google Trump executive order tracker, you'll see a number of them populate and pop up. But again, for me, just in terms of ease of access, it's the Post one that I've been using of late.
I would also like to suggest a tracker site that you may not have heard of, Ed. It is called TrumpGolfTrack.com. And it doesn't I want people to know that it doesn't just record the number of days Donald Trump has spent golfing. It also records the price of eggs and the price of gasoline. So 32 days in office, 9 days spent golfing, 28.13% of his time in office has been spent golfing. Ed Youngka, it is always a pleasure. When are you going to go see that granddaughter of yours, your first new granddaughter?
I am telling you, Joan, as soon as I hang up this phone, I am going to wrap up a couple of things, and I am going to get in the cab, and I am going to go meet my grandchild.
Oh, how wonderful. How wonderful. What a great way to start your weekend, Ed.
Exactly.
It's always so much fun to talk with you, and there's so much bad and there's so much stress right now, and talking to you is one way where you see the hope, where you see, things aren't maybe optimal right now, but it doesn't mean that everybody's just rolling over. And that is that message of hope and the fact that there are people out there fighting the good fight. And as you heard from Mark Pocan and from Peter Fenn, if you've got any money, send it to the lawyers.
And even if you don't have any money, follow us. Follow along with what we're doing. Take our action alerts. Do those actions. Call your members of Congress. Call your state representatives. This is the work we can do together. And, by the way, vote in your local elections this year, because it turns out elections really matter.
Yes. And I know that there are lots of local elections that are coming up very quickly in the next month or two, some of them here in Illinois, like the primary for mayor of Aurora. That's something that's coming up real quick.
Mayor of Peoria, and a number of other places, exactly.
Well, we are going to try to keep an eye on all of that, and we are going to bring Ed Youngka back on a regular basis because we need to hear what kind of a fight the ACLU of Illinois is waging. Ed, thank you again.
Thanks so much.
We are going to take a break. We are going to be back with more right after this.
If you've missed any of today's show, you can listen on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, iHeartRadio, YouTube, Amazon, or HeartlandSignal.com. Just search for Joan Esposito. Live, local, and progressive.
This is Chicago's Progressive Talk, 820 AM, WCPT Willow Springs, and online at WCPT820.com, where facts matter.
Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive on WCPT 820.
I am very pleased to be joined by Tom Villanova from the Southland Friends of Labor. He's a board member there and someone who is going to see me at my early morning best, or some might say early morning worst, this coming Monday, February 24th, when I do a live on tape broadcast from the Southland Friends of Labor breakfast. Tom, how are you?
Very good, Joan. Thank you again for agreeing to be part of Monday's organization. It's a great breakfast, a lot of labor people, and you'll fit in perfectly there, and I appreciate you doing that.
What unions will we have represented at our breakfast?
We have 22 board members right now representing different unions, so there'll be an array of all different unions. We've got retired state rep Al Riley, too, that's part of our board. He'll be there. But we'll have probably about 20 unions represented there with representatives from the different people. We usually have about 300, 350 people at this breakfast. So it'll be a very nice thing, and it's great to have you there and great to have everybody be a part of this with your broadcast.
I know that a lot of union leaders are very worried about this current administration for fear that he will cut some of the infrastructure jobs that are in the pipeline. What do you think about that?
Well, it's already started, Joan, and I'll give you some ammunition for me right now. I do have some notes, Joan. I know you appreciated that last time when I spoke to you.
Yes, you're the man who always has the notes.
I do have notes, but on that vein, I mean, the Department of Labor already halted any project labor agreements. So this is just a wave of things to come, and they're talking about doing this with any infrastructure projects, that any project labor agreements that were agreed to are going to be just disbanded.
Wow.
Project labor agreement basically says that the work will be done 100% union. And there's never been a time like this before that all the unions better stick together, and we better just coalesce behind each other and watch out, because there's so many things going on. I mean, there's even a bill to eliminate OSHA, which is just bizarre. It's one thing after another. And it's just, there's never been a time like this before. I was just watching Secretary of Labor change her mind that she wasn't for right to work before. Now all of a sudden, by some stroke of luck, she's for right to work, which basically should be called right not to work.
Yeah, or right to work for less.
She's rescinded. When she was a congresswoman, she said that she was against it. Now all of a sudden, she's kind of floundering on the whole thing and talking about the state should have the approval of this. It shouldn't be up to the government. And, I mean, she's just backpedaling on everything, like everybody that deals with this guy is just, they do whatever he wants and whatever he says. Otherwise, they're going to be gone.
Wow. I know that they have been going after all these different government organizations. I didn't realize that OSHA was in their sights as well.
There's a bill from a representative, Andy Biggs from Arizona, that he's putting up in Congress to eliminate OSHA. It's bizarre that somebody would even think about this. This is a safety act for workers, and you're going to eliminate that. I don't know what the thinking is on this, except for the President pro temp, Elon Musk, with his chainsaw yesterday, just talking about cutting things. And it gets more bizarre every day when you read and look at the news. It gets more bizarre every single day when something comes up. You just can't believe what's being said and done. I mean, I just read a thing, too, about he's the first president to go to the Super Bowl. He was all proud of that and everything. The only reason he went was because he wanted to confront Taylor Swift. But it cost $10 million to put him in the Super Bowl, with all the everything that went on with the airfare, with the Secret Service, with everybody. $10 million. Know how many jobs in the government we could have saved with that $10 million? Just so he had to be a showboat and show Taylor Swift up. I mean, it's bizarre. It's wacky. He's brought things to a different level that we've never seen before, thank God. But hopefully the unions can all stick together. I think everybody's kind of figuring it out now. I mentioned Elon Musk. Here's a guy with 17 contracts with 11 different government agencies. The one alone, the space contract, is a $22 billion contract. That's just one of the 17 contracts he has. You talk about a conflict of interest.
Oh, my
gosh,
yes.
This has got to be a huge conflict of interest. But I don't know. I don't know where we're going to go, and I don't know what's going to solve this. But everybody better stick together and just figure out what they can do. I got an email yesterday that last night at midnight, he pulled all the COVID tests off of the website. You can't get the free COVID tests anymore.
And worse than that, the COVID tests that they have in the government storage, I heard, well, it was reported, hopefully they've decided not to, but they were going to just destroy them. They had millions of these tests that hadn't been distributed, and rather than giving them to people until they're gone, the plan was to just destroy them.
Well, and that's just the way of the thinking of this group. I'll call it a group. I mean, it's one right after another with these new secretaries that they're appointing. One appointment's more bizarre than the last. They're talking about cutting veteran stuff now, too, which is just, I mean, how would anybody even think of doing that? The people that gave us our country, defended our country. and you're talking about cutting things. And I go out to the Fisher House out at Hines Hospital. It's like the Ronald McDonald House of the VA. Somebody who's coming there for treatment to the hospital and can't afford a hotel room as a veteran. I go out about every 3 months with a group, and we cook for them, and we have a bingo game. But these people can't even afford a hotel room. And those people that work there, there's only 3 or 4 of them, they're worried about their jobs. And to do away with something like that is just tragic. It's wrong. It's just wrong.
It really is. We've talked before. I've talked with lots of union leaders who bemoan the fact that the rank and file don't always seem to understand what is at risk. I mean, we saw during the election season Donald Trump at that point cozying up to Elon Musk and talking about how brilliant he was because, man, at his factory, if anybody complains, well, he just fires them, and isn't that great? And yet there was still some rank-and-file union support for Donald Trump. Are you hearing any kind of regret from members who are willing to say, well, I voted for the guy. I didn't really think it was going to come back to bite me like this? What are the people you're talking to on a daily basis? What are they saying about all this?
I think people are getting apprehensive about it. I think it's a little too early, which it's never too early to think like that. But I think it's a little too early for them to admit that they've done wrong. I think in the long run, once these things all kick in and they realize that that group of billionaires pride themselves on cutting jobs, not making jobs, and they realize that they're going to be in the crosshairs of all of this too. Unions are in the crosshairs of big time. I mean, we're one of the biggest groups that they're going to be against because we defend workers and protect jobs. So I think the people that did vote for him, there is a big group. It's just hard to fathom that there is. And I talk about education. I mean, it's up to us to educate our members. But there is a big group out there, and I think it's just a little too early for them to admit that they did wrong. But I think in the long run it'll come around, but it might be too late, too.
Well, let's talk about something a little bit more hopeful right now. At our breakfast this coming Monday, what do you think people are going to be talking about, aside from politics? What are some of the other union concerns people are going to be talking about on Monday?
Well, I'll run down the list right now. You and I are going to start things out as usual, which is great, and I appreciate you being there once again. Andy Rico, who's the business manager of Local 176 IBW out in Joliet, is going to lead things off right after me. Andy's been in office for about a year and a half, but he's been a business agent before, and he wants to talk about some projects out in Joliet, how they're worried out there. Bob Howard used to be the business manager of a Carpenters Local. Great guy. He's the president of Chicago and Western Lakes Port Council now. Steve Powell, who is a good friend of mine, is a president of Local 881 at UFCW, and he's an international vice president with UFCW with Food and Commercial Workers. And Steve's not shy about anything. Steve will jump in with things. Caitlin French, who you talked to last time, who's with the nurses at Ascension out in Joliet they fired her. She was the union steward.
Yes.
She's going to be there, and she'll have some more updates on what's going on there. And another one, a friend of mine, Senator Bill Cunningham from the 18th District. I grew up in the 19th Ward, and Bill and I have been friends. We work together in Springfield. Bill will bring a different perspective, like the Springfield perspective to things, which is going to be refreshing. And Jennifer Bertino-Tarrant is the Will County executive. She's also, I know she wants to talk about infrastructure projects out there in her area in Will County and how they're worried because they got a couple huge projects going out there that they're worried about what's going to, if they're going to rescind the funding, what they're going to do with it, rescind the PLAs, what they're going to do with any of that. So it'll be interesting to hear what she has to say, too. And then the UAW directors that are going to be there, too. We tried to get a cross-section of different unions and different leaders and different people. And I think we've succeeded in that. And I think you're going to find that out as you talk to them, that they all come from a different area of labor. And it'll be interesting to see the different thoughts that come out of everything.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be fun. I know the doors open at 7:30. I'm hoping I can get in before then. I'll just bang on the door, Tom. You come get me, all right?
6:30. I mean, I know where you're staying, so if you need me to swing by and pick you up in the morning, I'll be glad to swing by and pick you up. You're
I'm going to have my own car, but so I will meet you there. And for those people who are listening to us now, this is open. This breakfast is open to current union members, retired union members, or if you are a listener of WCPT and you find yourself in Joliet and you'd like to come over, you're welcome too. Tom, what's the best way for people to register for this event?
Just when you come in. There'll be a table to register when you come in. Just feel free to come in, get registered. We're going to have a lot of elected officials there too. They always show up. There's a municipal election on April 1st, so I'm sure we're going to have a lot of local people that are running show up, and it'll be good for them to talk to other people too. So, like you said, everybody's welcome. Please come. Please be a part of it, and it should be a great success.
It will be a great success. I will see you, Tom, on Monday morning, and hopefully we'll get some CPT listeners to come out for the Friends of Labor Southland, Friends of Labor Breakfast. On the frontage road in Joliet, it's the IBEW Local 176 building. Tom, thank you for being here, and I will see you Monday.
Looking forward to it, Joan. Thank you very much for doing this.
Take
care.
care.
Have a good weekend.
We are going to take a break. We'll be back with more right after this.
WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk, where facts matter.
Oh, Hochberg. I forgot, Lady B. If you are a listener, if you are a divorce attorney or a CPA, if you are somebody who wants to buy a new home or refinance your current home, you need to call Team Hochberg, in part because the people you have done business with in the past, if they're not Team Hochberg, they may no longer be doing that kind of work. In the last 2 years, 165,000 mortgage professionals have just left the business. Once rates started going up and things were more difficult, they just decided that there were greener pastures elsewhere. But Team Hochberg is dedicated to doing this kind of work, and in the last 2 years, they've expanded. Yes, they actually have more loan officers than they had before. I have refinanced with them 2 or 3 times, and I will, if I'm ever going to sell this house, if I'm ready to buy a new house, I would not hesitate to go back to them again. As you know, there's so much paperwork and there's so much stuff to do when you do all this. And Team Hochberg really does make it as painless as humanly possible. And you can count on them that they will always have the best rates and the lowest closing costs. So if you're interested in financing or refinancing, please give them a try, give them a call, give them a chance to earn your business. The number to call, 855-563-2843, or online, 56david.com. Again, 855-563-2843, or on your computer, 56david.com. Lower.com, equal housing lender, NMLS 1124061.
Now back to Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive on WCPT 820.
So we've got a lot going on. We've got a lot going on this Saturday, which would be, let me check. Oh, yeah, that's right. That's tomorrow. If you are going to be anywhere close to Lake in the Hills, maybe you should stop over at the Boulder Ridge Country Club for lunch. From 11 to 2, the McHenry County Democratic Women are going to be hosting a Trailblazers and Fundraisers afternoon lunchtime program. Going to be food going to be auction baskets, going to be a cash bar. If you're ready for that Bloody Mary, I don't know. And I will be the keynote speaker. I'm very pleased to be joining the McHenry County Democratic Women tomorrow. If you're, in the neighborhood, we would love to have you come along. And then, as you just heard me speak to Tom, Monday morning I'm going to be doing probably a live on tape broadcast. I will be doing it from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. in Joliet. You will be hearing it. If you can't join us, you will be hearing it on my show from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. And then I think Patty Vasquez is going to start her show an hour early on Monday. At least that is my information. Also, if you live in the district and your congressperson is Raja Krishnamurthy, there is going to be his town hall Monday the 24th. On the 25th, there's also going to be a gathering in Evanston. If you live in Evanston and you want to talk with the current mayor, Daniel Biss, about the direction the city is going in or anything that is a question or a concern of yours, that is going to be on Tuesday, the 25th. Well, this is our resistance. I am a resist bot, and we are going to let you know about these events and these protests. Some of them will be marches. Some of them will be meetings that take place at a venue or at an elected person's office. Some of them will be things that you can do from the comfort of your couch. For instance, a week from today, Friday the 28th, is our day of economic boycott of every entity. The 24 hours of Friday, February 28th, midnight to midnight, we are not going to be shopping. We're not going to be shopping online. We're not going to be using our debit cards. We're not going to be using our credit cards. We are going to show corporations that we are willing to protest with our dollars. If there's an emergency and you absolutely need something, try to only go to a local mom and pop store in your neighborhood, but preferably don't spend any money. Don't go to the grocery store. Don't get that online doohickey you've been wanting to order for a while. Just don't do it for 24 hours. A nationwide economic action. I'm not going to call it a boycott. Let's just call it an action. We are going to keep our money in our pocket for 24 hours. That's going to do it for me. Well, at least for today. As you know, tomorrow I will be in McHenry County. But I will be back here live. I will be back here Tuesday the 25th. Like I say, the interviews I do in Joliet are going to be broadcast later Monday the 24th in my regular time frame. But right now, I am handing the baton to the lovely Patty Vasquez, who will be here after the news. She's got a guest host today, Dan Katowski, former Illinois state senator and president and CEO of Kids Above All. They're also going to be talking to St. Charles Mayor Laura Vitek. That's always interesting. Patty talks to a lot of local government officials, people who generally don't get the spotlight or the microphone. And those are the people. If you live in St. Charles, what the mayor does is important to your life. You know, that's why it's so important to get people who feel that their vote doesn't count to get out, especially for local elections. Because who you vote in as your local leadership, who you vote in to represent you in your state house or in your county, those are the people who are passing the laws that determine how you live, the freedoms you have, the freedoms you don't have, the rules you have to live by. Those are the people who are really, in some respects, almost more important than the people who you elect in Washington. That's why elections matter. Tomorrow, Saturday, Edwin Eisendrath will be here from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. with the big picture. He is going to be joined by the Atlantic Magazine's George Packer. He's going to have the editor of the New Hampshire Bulletin, Dana Warmold, and political scientist Dan Moynihan. That is the Big Picture, Saturdays from 1 to 4, and it is always preceded by our other local favorite, Hal Sparks. He may not be based in Chicago. Hal may be based out in California, but he has never forgotten his Chicago roots, and his show can be very amusing. On Monday, see, you're getting the whole 9 yards here. Monday, Richard Chu, of course, 6 a.m. He's going to be talking to State Rep Cam Buckner. He's also going to be talking to the artistic director of Timeline Theater, P.J. Powers. Timeline Theater is going to be doing a production of Debate, Baldwin versus Buckley. It's a show that's going to be running through March 2nd at DePaul. I love when the arts and politics come together. That can be so powerful. Sometimes, when you're reading about things or listening to podcasts or videos, you get information. But when you go to a one-person show about Mayor Jane Byrne or a one-person show about Lyndon Baines Johnson, you not only get the information, but you get it in a way that resonates emotionally. And when a bit of information resonates with you emotionally, that's the bit of information that is going to be sticking with you. That's why the arts are so important, particularly when they intersect with politics. Okay, have you heard enough from me? I think you have. I think it is time for me to go away. Patty Vasquez is, like I said, going to be here. I will be back live Tuesday the 25th, hopefully recovered from my journey to Joliet on Monday. That is it for me, but remember, you have homework. You have homework, the same homework you have every weekend, and that is to find something that gives you a mental reset. Find something that brings you joy. We are not going to get through the next 4 years by constantly being angry and constantly being at war. You have to laugh. You have to relax. You have to delight in the people who bring you joy. I'm going out to dinner tonight with Jackie Bang. She is one of the people from Channel 9 who brings me joy. I urge you to find your joy this weekend. Have a great weekend, folks. Good night.